Hello, I'm Tenten Mina, Head of Research and Publications and Curator of the Ayala Museum. In today's episode of Cultural Cache Online, I will be talking about a work by Fernando Zóbel in the Cultural Center of the Philippines 21 AM collection titled Lepidoptero, Noche de Verano. As a student at Ateneo, I first encountered this artwork as an image in a monograph on Fernando Zóbel, written by the artist, art historian, and critic Rod Perez. Lepidoptero stood out in my mind because of the muted tones and the clear geometric relationships between forms that seemed almost alien to my untrained eyes that associated Zóbel with the expressive and vibrant colors and gestural strokes of earlier works I had seen on permanent display at the Ateneo Art Gallery. It wasn't until a decade later that I would come face to face with this painting and have the opportunity to appreciate it closely when Ayala Museum loaned the work in 2014 for the exhibition Journey into Space, the Visual Odyssey of Fernando Zóbel. Zóbel is a fascinating artist because he was interested in many things, visually and intellectually, and the themes and styles he explored were numerous, although his 30-year career may be considered relatively short. As a person who regularly inhabited museums, studying works from antiquity to his contemporaries, Zóbel accumulated an extensive cultural knowledge to draw inspiration from. In the early 50s, Zóbel painted mostly colorful figurative works on canvas, paper, and masonite board. Before the end of the decade, he turned his attention to exploring the expressiveness of lines as a visual language of its own in his Saeta series. This was followed by a period mostly devoid of color, the Serie Negra. Zóbel also explored his fascination with line and shade in the numerous prints he produced throughout his career. The work we are looking at now falls within Zóbel's period of return to color and scale as he studied and abstracted further the visual relationships in landscapes in the late 60s, a period at times described as geometric or architectural in focus. While the square pictorial plane is occupied by trapezoidal, cubical, and rectangular shapes accented by varying blended tones and shades of brown to allude to a three-dimensional plane, a distinct opaque white quarter circle rests on the top left corner of the translucent cube, just below the center of the composition. At the base of this cube is an angular shadow cast by the white quarter circle. On the right side of the canvas, opposite the quarter circle, a trapezoidal cut in the vertical plane creates the impression of a window opening into a dark void. Though only the vertically aligned cubes in the middle of the canvas can be said to function symmetrically in the composition, Zóbel creates an image of serenity and balance. Majority of Zóbel's oeuvre are formally described as oil paintings on canvas, but if one were to be strict about it, we may consider the graphite or simple pencil as a key material in many of the artist's compositions as well. Although the artist and even his contemporaries spoke of the importance and abundance of preparatory sketches Zóbel would make for each work, the sketch would traditionally become invisible in a finished canvas, concealed by layers of paint, or manifest only in the seemingly spontaneous gestures of the artist's hand. From the early 60s to mid-70s, as Zóbel began his series of diálogos or dialogues with masterworks, and explored a variety of abstract landscape compositions, both imagined and distilled from reality, the artist began to intentionally use the graphite lines in his final compositions to emphasize forms and spatial relationships as we see in this example. Lepidoptera refers to the order of insects that includes moths and butterflies, and appears to be the main subject of this composition, while the setting is a warm summer night or Noche de Verano. Zóbel was a meticulous person who also kept a record of the works he produced. He would also often sign, catalog, and date the backs of the paintings, and at times indicate where the work was completed. Because of this, we know that Zóbel finished this painting on the 2nd of July, 1969, in the warm environs of Seville in southern Spain, early into the summer months. Zóbel began his artistic career in his native Philippines in the early 1950s, when modern art was still largely unappreciated, except in certain circles. As scion of the Zóbel de Ayala family, he worked in the morning as a managing partner of the family business and spent his evenings painting. He eventually moved to Spain in 1960 after health reasons caused him to reconsider retiring from the management of the business and focusing solely on his art. Despite his relocation, he never severed ties with the Philippine art scene. While actively participating in exhibitions of Spanish artists in Europe and America, he also continued to return to Manila to participate in solo and group exhibitions. In 1970, Zóbel exhibited Lepidoptero as part of the summer exhibition of the CCP and donated the painting thereafter to the institution. Perhaps Zóbel felt a resonance between this painting and the architectural design of his dear friend, national artist for architecture, Leandro Locsin, that influenced his decision to donate the canvas, but I tend to think that the generosity was simply so characteristic of the artist. In addition to supporting the education and careers of many young artists, he was instrumental in the founding of not one, but 3 museums: the Museo de Arte Abstracto Español in Cuenca, Spain, and in Manila, the Ateneo Art Gallery and the Ayala Museum. When Ayala Museum began working on the Catalogue Raisonné of Fernando Zóbel, we also learned more about the interesting journey of this painting. Lepidoptero was also featured in the exhibition Not Just Windows at the CCP Small Gallery in 1978. After the sudden passing of the artist in June 1984, the Museum of Philippine Art hosted a tribute exhibition dedicated to the painter. Though the MOPA is now gone, the CCP archives have preserved black and white photographs of the exhibition installation, showing us Lepidoptero hanging beside 2 other strongly geometric works, Dialogo and Ixion. Later, Lepidoptero was also featured in an exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Manila and in an exhibition at the Ateneo Art Gallery in conversation with works of fellow artists Lee Aguinaldo and Roberto Chabet, perhaps to the artist's delight. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Cultural Cache Online.